We are live. Hello and welcome. Welcome to episode 1 of this season of The Right Reasons, a Bachelor recap show.
What season is this?
Of our show? I have no idea. I think we're not doing it.
Episode 1 of 2021. How about that?
It's episode 1 of Matt James' season.
Yeah, Matt James season. So we should probably introduce ourselves?
Yeah, so we're back. Okay, first and foremost, hello if you are on YouTube. Please say hi in the comments. If you're watching this live with us, let us know you're here. If we look down this way, that's because we're looking to see your comments. If we're looking here, we're here looking at you or with you in the camera. And then we have notes on our phones that we took down during the episode. So if you see us glance at those, sometimes there are quotes that we want to get accurate.
Yeah, repeat accurately.
Yeah.
So, first and foremost, I'm Kyle. This is Rachel.
I'm Rachel.
And we call this YouTube show and podcast The Right Reasons because it's our last name and also a common phrase on the Bachelor franchise.
So the reason why our show is a little bit different than other Bachelor recap shows or podcasts that are out there, I am a marriage, family, and sex therapist and sex educator, and I have always loved this show. So I am a giant fan of the Bachelor franchise, and I have always looked at it through this lens of, I wish we could use this as a way to talk about psychology and healthy relationships and sex ed, and then we did.
Yes, then we did. It's a very short way of saying that Rachel and I used to have a company in which we worked together to help teach couples how to have happier, healthier relationships. This was a product of that, and turns out we just like doing that. So now that we don't have our business together anymore, we still like doing this together. So we're going to keep doing this because this is fun. And this season of The Bachelor, well, frankly, deserves it. So
honestly, it does. So if you can hear and see us okay, I see that there are a few of you here with us live.
Yeah,
just let us know that you can hear and see us. We're waving, we're talking, but we don't want to dive into our recap unless we know that you are here with us.
Let us know. New setup.
Yeah. And then for those of you who are listening to this as a podcast, welcome. The process of what happens is whenever ABC decides to air their Bachelor content, which is typically Monday nights, sometimes Monday and Tuesday, was Tuesday last season, sometimes is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yep.
Whenever they choose to air their content, we watch it, and then that very next day, we will recap. So if there are double episodes, we'll typically recap after both have aired, but we'll talk about that each week, and we will be here with you through every twist and turn of this season, and it's going to be really exciting.
It is going to be really, really exciting.
Yay! Okay, excellent. We can hear and see y'all. Wonderful.
Awesome.
Amazing. So if any of you have any questions for us about the show, meaning The Bachelor or The Right Reasons, please let us know. Reach out to us on Instagram. It's the easiest way to reach us. My handle is @therright, so the WRIGHT _ Rachel, RACHEL.
And mine's the exact same, but it's Kyle instead of Rachel. We're real original like that.
Yeah. So I just want to show this to the camera so that when we put this up on YouTube, we can get a nice little screenshot there. Ta-da! Nice. And this will obviously change every episode for what episode we are recapping so that you can keep track along with us with all this new content.
It's going to be a doozy of a season.
What are you most excited about for this season before we dive in?
It seems to be in the effort to make this show as watchable as possible during the pandemic and the restrictions on travel they have cast it as well as possible. I'd say the casting for this is the most interesting to me that I've seen so far. I think that the people who are not only the lead himself, but the contestants are also, I wouldn't say like higher quality, but there's more diversity. There's a lot more people that are different from one another down to career choice and everything. It is very different, diverse cast across the board. Yeah,
it didn't feel, just overall, it didn't feel as carbon copy as like many other seasons have felt. Kind of like the in some past seasons, there have been, and frankly, Bachelor and Bachelorette, like I remember specifically on JoJo's season, there were a few guys that got out of the limo one after each other, and I was like, I can't tell them apart. Like, they had the same haircut, they had like the same spray tan tone, they had the same everything, and it's similar to the a lot of the women who are on Colton season.
Mm-hmm.
That like.
Well, I didn't even watch JoJo's season, and I still remember the memes from all of the guys looking exactly the same.
Yes. Yeah. So I know I'm really excited. I'm excited to be back. We have been doing The Right Reasons since Colton season. It was the first season that we started covering the show. And Bahara just asked the question that I'm about to answer. She asked, can you guys quickly talk about why you took a break last season for Claire and Tayshia's season? So here is the full and honest truth. The pandemic was going okay. As good, as well as what a pandemic can go.
In Brooklyn.
In New York, yes. And we were cruising along, and I actually started to hit some speed bumps for myself personally. As a therapist, I hold a lot of space, and I love what I do. I love what I do so much. And during these, I hate even saying this because it's been said so many times, but during these unprecedented times, I frankly did not have the coping tools available to me that I usually use to really be me so that I can show up fully as a therapist, as a wife, as a partner, as a girlfriend, as a sister, as whatever. And those gas tanks were really low. And so I actually experienced a depressive episode with panic attacks. And this is something that I had not experienced for a really long time. And I needed to take some time off and away of having something that I had to do every week. And I did not have the capacity to review the show in the way that we wanted to bring it to you. So that combined with
the pandemic
and the confusion, frankly, around was the show going to air? We didn't know. We may have been moving when it was supposed to air. There were so many things in the air. It just felt like, you know what? Let's just skip this chunk, fill up our own gas tanks, and then come back with Matt James' season with a bang. I did get a couple emails from people asking if we would do like a one episode recap on Tayshia and Claire, and I think that's something we could probably do. Yeah,
maybe. Well, I mean, we'll see. It's a whole thing to go back to. Yeah, I think we really wanted to watch the show just to watch it. I think that's something we've all been trying to do is figure out like what feels good during all of this. And for us, it felt really good to be able to sit back and watch it as viewers and not pausing every couple seconds to make sure we get everything written down correctly, everyone's names, everyone's ages, career, all the things. It was frankly very nice just to be able to sit down.
It was also a very interesting experience to watch the show just as a viewer again. And I'm excited to bring that along with my healthy brain into this season of The Bachelor. So thank you all for being here so much. So excited to see some familiar names in the chat here. I hope that we see some more in the static chat after the live is over. Please feel free to engage with us during this. This is a conversation. Kyle and I had a podcast for a really long time before we started this one. And so we're really good at integrating your comments over video into the podcast. So please don't hesitate if you're here with us on YouTube to engage and interact. And if you're listening on the podcast, don't feel left out. We will read the comments that we're talking about and keep you in the loop as we go along.
Yeah.
Anything else I'm missing?
Not really. I think we can go back over the questions that are there real quick about, you want to do a quick thought about last season or?
No, we have so much to talk about.
Oh yeah, it's the
Matt.
First episode of the new season, so it's a train wreck, so.
But what I will, one thing. Be sure to subscribe and set alerts to this channel. The only thing that will be published on this YouTube channel moving forward is The Right Reasons. That's it. Yep. No other content. So if you want to get notified when we're live, when there's new videos, anything like that, make sure that you like and subscribe and set the notifications. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, do the same thing just on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. All right. You ready? And then we can do Tayshia and Claire another time.
Sure. Yeah, I am ready as I will ever be to do this again.
Did you all miss Kyle's love-hate of the show? Okay. Bachelor, season 25. So, going into this episode, what did you know about Matt James?
I knew that he was very good friends with Tyler Cameron from a long time ago, who was a previous contestant on Hannah Brown's season, who made a big splash. Also is friends with Hannah Brown, and seems to be kind of connected in that area of I don't know, people of the franchise. He's like franchise adjacent, is what I figured out. Beyond that, not a lot. I mean, yeah, I just kind of saw him peripheral. Oh, he's friends with somebody. I didn't know if he had entered himself into the show to be a contestant or to be the lead or anything. Mostly, I just knew that he was friends of friends.
Okay.
What about you?
I knew that he was Tyler Cameron's best friend. I knew that he did charity work with kids. I knew that he lived in New York.
Yeah, you know a lot more than I did.
Well, I'm on Instagram a lot. Matt James 919. This was like a thing when Tyler was on Hannah's season, was who's Tyler's hot best friend, who's always on his Instagram, and it was Matt James 919. I then found out, like, oh, he's registered. People were saying, like, oh, he's a registered Republican, and he's actually this, and he's racist, and he's like, and all of this like speculative shit. So frankly, I was really excited to come into this episode not knowing much about him and letting the show tell me in a way. Like, I wanted production to tell me what they wanted me to know about him.
Oh, that is also one thing that I found very refreshing going into this season, is that both the lead and the contestants, there's no familiar faces. Everyone's new. Usually the lead is from a previous season or is in like sure, he's like adjacent, but has not actually been through the process of it, the experience of it, being okay, all that stuff. He hasn't done. So that was exciting and refreshing to start.
So the show kicks off in a way that I know I was confused. I was like, wait, did we...
Cold open?
Are we not like... Did we fast forward? And it opens with who we learn is Katie coming out of the limo. And Katie walks up and she talks to Matt about the pandemic. And again, we like rewound because we thought that we had like skipped in somehow.
Yeah, like 10 seconds in or something.
I think we rewound like 4 times to be like, are we sure this is the beginning? Are you sure?
I think so.
And then... she says, I really wanted to bring something with me that helped me get through the pandemic and pass the torch to you. And it's a freaking vibrator. And I, as a sex educator and sex therapist... who
happens to have been doing an entire toy review system.
Yeah, who does a lot of reviews of toys. I was so happy about this. And also, go ABC. Like, I really want to give credit when credit is due. And ABC and Warner Brothers is the production team behind the show. ABC is the network. ABC and Warner Brothers have typically erred on the side of being conservative when it comes to anything having to do with sex, real, raw...
which is hilarious.
...discussions, which is hilarious because the show's about relationships.
Yeah, for the amount of naked shower scenes we get, it's surprisingly conservative. I know.
Like, I can tell you that my lady parts got really excited when I saw Matt taking a shower.
Which
they did not get excited and would not if I saw a purple sparkly vibrator.
Fair.
Like, the thing that they blacked out, in my opinion, is less sexual and attractive. It's silicone. Like, okay, it's a sex toy. Like, why do we have to black out a rabbit? Anyway, so that's how we kick off. And I'm like, I'm fucking in. I'm in. Like, you have me hooked. Not only was I excited anyway, but you opened it with a freaking sex toy joke about coping during the pandemic with masturbation.
Mm-hmm.
All in.
And we go right in from there. The show starts, and my notes on that specific example or thing was, wow, the dildo thing. Wow, Rachel must be happy. What we do is we'll watch the show and we take notes on our phones, but we take them separately so we're able to bring them both here and discuss them back and forth. But as soon as I saw that, I was I knew Rachel would be stoked. So we get the big sweeping shots of the resort and all these things,
which is so pretty.
Yeah, I wrote down "Suck it, La Quinta," because that was where the previous season of Claire and Tayshia was done, and I understand they pivoted. They had to do last minute. I get they did the best they could with it. Also, wow, this place is amazing.
Yeah, it looks really incredible. I've been to the La Quinta Inn and Resort in Palm Springs. I spent like many years of my life in Southern California, and it's a really lovely resort.
Yeah.
But it's like
It's
little
not bad.
villas, and you go with your family, and like you stay and you go to the pool. The place that they filmed Matt James' season is like a full
It's a
resort, like a property, like acres and acres and acres. And so
Yeah.
even though they're not traveling, it looks like we're going to get a lot more variety in their
Travel-like
options.
things. Yeah, they're not going to be riding scooters around a hotel like
And then
resort
horses
complex.
around the same spot.
Yeah, but like within the hotel buildings. You notice that when they did the horses, they had to go inside like the whole whatever. We're going to see some real outdoors. That's going to be exciting.
So then they
Right.
do, we stop the cold open and we get the like classic Bachelor start where we get this intro package of Matt James.
Yeah.
So they really focus a lot on the fact that he is not a past contestant or person of Bachelor Nation. Although I did catch one lie from Chris Harrison. Chris Harrison said that when they first met Matt James, and then he uses the line, "when you know, you know." He says that when they first met Matt James, they knew that he had to be the Bachelor, which I call bullshit.
Yeah.
Because he was cast as a contestant on Claire's season. And then they released that to the public. So it sounds like maybe
That's
you
the point.
decided after
Yeah.
you did that you wanted him to be the Bachelor. It kind of sounds like after the George Floyd protests happened, a few days later, ABC and Warner Brothers came out and said Matt James is the new Bachelor. But I call bullshit that the first time that they met Matt James, they thought he needs to be the Bachelor because he would have been.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, haha, funny ABC. This is very much like the thing where something happens and your annoying friend's like, I knew that was going to happen. Okay. Did you know that was going to happen? Wow. We're impressed. And also, who cares? Like, congratulations, ABC. Do you want like a pat on the back for... I'm confused by that. I don't know why they brought that up.
So then we learn about Matt. He is 28 years old. I thought he was older, by the way. He carries himself older.
Yeah, I did the same thing based off of his career, where he lives, and the way he presents himself.
Yeah. So he's 28. He grew up in North Carolina. He is in commercial real estate in New York. And he works with a lot of inner city kids, a lot of homeless kids. He is very attractive and very good with children.
Yep.
He said, nothing happens by chance and everything is a blessing. He walks into his living quarters. I wrote down, I really like him so far.
Yeah.
And then we get into a little bit of his story. His primary family is his mom, who is white, and his older brother, whose name is John. He tells us that his dad is black. However, he and his mom split up while he was a very young child and doesn't remember that split up. And he grew up with a single mom and his brother in a very Christian household in North Carolina as a child of an interracial marriage, which in North Carolina especially is a bit tougher than, let's say, a place like New York City where it's more common.
Yeah, where there's just more diversity in general.
Yeah.
He talks about how his mom has been really, really amazing and has literally done everything she could to provide like the opportunities for him in life, which he was able to do. We get the amazing like look back on his life. We get the super, super nerdy high school picture, and then you get like this super buff middle of college athlete picture right afterwards. Hilarious. He like triples in size. But he's been really closed off for a long time emotionally and has a hard time getting vulnerable with people because in his experience, vulnerability means you get hurt. And he's terrified of getting his heart broken.
So that very quickly, Kyle and I realized is kind of the narrative of Matt's season from a romantic lens. Is he had a quote-unquote broken home. I don't like that term. That's what he said. His parents got divorced when he was young. He was raised by a single mom. And so for him, he has not been able to see that opening up vulnerably in a romantic way can lead to happiness. He's only seen it lead to pain as a child. And when we're kids, our brains are like sponges. Our brains are so susceptible to anything. And if that belief gets in there of like vulnerability equals my mom crying and like us being alone, then that's what gets in there. And that's so hard to get out of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even like vulnerability just means pain in general. Like if you say how you feel, people will do those things. It's scary as a kid, and it definitely leaves an impression, one that you aren't really aware you have until you're able to be an adult and you are able to actualize it and like see it outside of yourself for a little bit. So I imagine that's got to have been a pretty difficult time in relationships.
So he says at this point his mom is there, and I wrote down a quote from him that really stood out to me. He said, "Growing up in a single parent home, I feel like I missed out on what it takes to be in a good relationship." So I want to point out the systemic thing here. And what I mean by systemic, let me explain. I didn't think I was going to talk about this, but this just reminded me of it. We look to our parents to see what a romantic relationship is. We don't do it consciously. We're just little kids. We get told that that's a relationship, right? So we look to our parents. And he may have not seen a two-person marriage. He did not get to witness that. And it is still so much better than witnessing either abuse or unhappiness, tension. When a relationship needs to end and people stay together, quote unquote, for the kids, it's usually more harmful to the child. And so what I really wanted to point out by this statement is that he's aware enough to say, I didn't have this example, but I can learn. That's easier cognitively, like in our heads, than coming from watching an unhealthy relationship and then having to learn how to do healthy. Yeah. So while I'm not trying to say one is better or worse, they're very hard. He has more of a clean slate to decide and learn what he wants his relationship to look like instead of trying to model it after what he saw. Does that make sense?
Yes. He doesn't have to unlearn bad habits. Yes. He has just to learn all the new ones, which requires being vulnerable. That's the thing to break down first. That's the scary part. Yes. But he doesn't have to unlearn what is an abusive way of speaking to your partner.
Or just bad, or just like a poor
anything,
way.
Right? Yeah. Anything that can come with more damaging childhood.
And frankly, even those of us who had like super wonderful, healthy childhoods, we all witnessed moments. Our parents were human, right? Like we all witnessed moments of unhealthy.
It's one of my least favorite things when people, when anyone commits any kind of terrible crime or does something terrible. One of the common things is, well, they came from such a nice family and home. Like that isn't all of it. Like we're still susceptible to other things in life. You don't know what just happened. So just like you can't blame all of the bad, you can't pick out all the good. It's very nuanced, and I appreciate the way they portrayed that on the show.
I agree.
I think they're handling things carefully but well.
Do you remember the last time we had a lead besides Tayshia? No, her parents are together. She was divorced. I'm trying to think of it, because so often on the show they're like, I want to be like my parents. They've been together for 85 years. You know what I mean? Like it's this like what you said. Like somehow your worth is better because your parents are together or not. Or anyway, this led to my favorite quote, maybe favorite quote of this episode. Matt says, "The perfect life is the one you live. There is no perfect family." I was like, shit, man, we're like 11 minutes in, and we're getting deep.
Yeah.
I love this.
That was great.
All of this was so great. I just want to look at the comments. Terrence says, I wanted it to be Mike, but I think Matt is going to be great. I'm with you. We were Team Mike also.
Same.
Crystal, she says, I missed you guys. We missed you too. Dennis says, so happy to see you back. I really missed your insights the last 2 seasons. We missed you too. Oh, Listen to Your Heart. That was the other season. I was like, there were 2?
I never said I was going to watch that show.
No, we were. So then he says, Matt James says, I'm just going to call him Matt James, I think. You know how some people get called their full name? Mm-hmm. I think he's Matt James to me. He says, I'm done making excuses for stuff. And we cut to commercial. Coming from a therapist perspective, I was like, look at this fucking radical personal responsibility that this man is taking. He's aware of why he has been acting the way he has in the dating world, which sounds like anytime it gets close to saying I love you, he's like out.
Yeah. He framed it exactly that way.
Yeah. And he's taking ownership and like being so open and vulnerable, and he hadn't even met anybody yet. I was so excited. Talk about turn on.
I mean, yeah, they did a good job laying things out without making... I appreciated starting a season where it's not like, I have to overcome my sadness. He's trying to be vulnerable and emotionally open. It's not like, I didn't make it to the final 3 Lassie. I'm sad. And I'm not saying that the other contestants and leads weren't sad. I'm just saying I'm happy to see a difference.
I agree. I like the fresh.
Also, now that even like this first 12 minutes into the show, I told Rachel this on the couch, I feel really bad for Pilot Pete. He just everything went wrong immediately for him. The poor guy. Like, it was so bad by this point. Anyway, let's continue. So, I think we're to the first limo.
Yes. No.
Oh, the package, the introductory package.
So we come back, and Matt is topless in his closet, picking out his outfit as though he does not know what he's wearing that night, which was really funny to me. I was like, why is he choosing fucking cufflinks? Like, the stylist, I think his name is Carrie. Like,
you don't pick your clothes.
They gave them to you. You're good.
Contestants do. He does not.
Yes. The tux is fantastic. He walks out of his room and gets into the limo and says, I appreciate you, to the limo driver holding the door. Once again, points for Matt James.
Also, when's the last time you saw someone on the show filmed, then displayed, speaking to the limo drivers?
If anybody even has.
Well, that's the thing. Behind the show scenes, you're not supposed to. And they've never shown it when it does happen. Because it happens, people do it by instinct. People do it by reflex because if you're a good person, you'll acknowledge other human beings.
Okay, but I want to challenge that.
Okay.
Acknowledging and saying, like, oh, thanks, is different than, like, intentionally. He was like, I appreciate you. It was very, like, that wasn't, like, a reflexive thank you. It was like he started it.
That's fair.
Do you know what I mean?
I guess I feel like I've said that to somebody who helped me like get something through the doors of a Subway once or something, where it's like an intentional act of like, I'm doing something for you, and I'm like, hey, I guess that makes sense. Either way, it was nice to see the people who are working on the show acknowledged at all, because usually they don't. And that's actually one of my things that I love the most about this season so far, is you're seeing a lot of people on camera that are not usually on camera.
Yeah, the bartenders, and they all have masks on.
Yeah, production assistants are running around in the background. It's great.
I wrote down the resort is so gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. Now it's the first group packages, I think.
No. Mm-hmm. Then he gets to the steps, and he says to Chris, he says, this is my first time doing this, and I have a couple questions, like, before the ladies get here. Just, impromptu. Casual, and they go and have one of the classic Chris lead fireside chats. We get a nice view of more of the resort as they go in there, and I actually, for the most part, really liked this chat. I want to give, I want to kind of toss it to you, Kyle. Oh no, that wasn't this one. Never mind.
Cool.
Okay, so they almost talk about the show in like a meta way. Chris acknowledges that there are going to be times that Matt's going to want to choke him out.
Which makes me... haha, joke. It also makes me think about, like, we've talked a lot about and heard a lot about, like, what the production does behind the scenes, and, like, is there a little bit of, like, coercing or manipulating of things, or, like, hey, you should go do this thing to, like, stir shit up. I'm just saying, maybe Chris Harrison's being a little more honest to us without exactly saying the words, that if he personally knows and is making the joke that Matt James is going to want to choke him out at some point, that he's gonna fuck with him a little bit.
He's
like
an executive producer.
That he's gonna put him through duress, and that's what he's telling him.
He knows.
Yeah, he knows. He signed up for it. It's in your NDA. Chris Harrison's gonna fuck with you.
Yeah, actually though, if you have not read the book or listened to the book Bachelor Nation by, I think is it Amy Kaufman?
I think so.
Read it. Kyle and I listened to it on a road trip, and a
If
long time ago, it like blew our brains.
Ever think about going on the show or know anyone who's going on the show, they have to read the book first.
Gnarly.
Yeah.
So, Chris Harrison says, if you're not emotional about this, you're probably not doing it right. And that was a great quote from Chris. Mm-hmm. So then we pivot into kind of like this fear around the romantic piece to Matt James brings, I can't call him Matt James brings up race. And he talks about how he's been putting pressure on himself, being the first Black Bachelor. And he really starts saying things that really echoed a lot of Rachel Lindsay's sentiments, which were, if I end up with a Black woman, one group of people are going to be happy and supportive. If I end up with a white woman, one group of people are going to be happy and supportive. And that means that there are going to be groups of people that are angry and upset. And he said out loud, how do I please everybody? And I can't imagine the pressure. It's pressure enough to go on the show. It's pressure enough to, okay, let's even take the show out of it. It's pressure enough to date, like in real life. Okay, so then you put it in the framing of the show. Then you add in all of this stuff. And then on top of it, not only is Matt going to have conversations about race throughout the season, which is new for the show. So I'm interested to see how they'll handle that. But Matt is acknowledging off the top that there are actually people who are going to be upset with him for who he falls in love with based on the color of their skin.
Yeah.
Like, and Chris really avoids this. Like he in the best way, he let Matt have the stage. In the worst way, he didn't really validate it. He kind of just says like, yeah, and that's why we want this to be about joy and love and about your happiness.
He pivots fast. He doesn't really say all the things that would be helpful, but also...
We don't need to hear from a white guy about race either.
Right. Also, while it would be good, I also don't think that the production wants the executive producer to be like, so we've cast a lot of racists in the past, and we've cast 98% white people in the past.
Probably more than that.
So we're going to change things up, and this is a little bit different, and we're going to take responsibility. I would love that instead of like it's the first Black Bachelor. You get to talk about it for a couple minutes. Okay, joy and love, right? Joy and love. Isn't that what the... It was good. Show, yeah. I was happy it happened. They could have done more. Okay, in the meantime.
Yes, it was for this episode. It was good. It was good. Sure. Then another one of my favorite quotes happened right before the commercial. No, he says, "I want to understand and unpack how her relationship, meaning his mom, her relationship with my father affected my relationship with women." I've never heard a statement like this been on the show. This is what we say. Yeah. Like, this is what we say on this show.
Yeah.
That's not what they say on that show. I'm pointing to where we watched it out there. Like...
Yeah.
You mean a lead of The Bachelor connected their childhood to how they're acting in the moment?
And they're not using it as relationship currency to get a rose?
What?
I know.
And he's actively working on it?
But for himself, not for other people?
Whoa.
It's crazy. He also, Chris asks him if he's ever been in love. And his answer to this, I thought was really, an answer you can give only with a little bit of certain life experience. He says that he thought he had, but now sitting back and looking back, his understanding and version of what love is has changed. So he thought he was, but now what he thinks love is different. So he can't really go back and say yes or no to it. That was a time of his life that he saw, but his definition for love has changed. I think that was a really interesting way of going about it, and I think it was really well said.
And I love the idea and the concept, because it is true, that what love means to us, what it feels like, how we act on it, how we show it, how we receive it, it changes throughout our lives, just like everything else does. And I love that this is already being discussed. Yeah, it's a good start for that, which I'm happy of. Yeah. So then we get to the first limo, and what Kyle and I decided to do was, instead of trying to like summarize all of the packages and limo entrances. Like it's just too much on the first night. Well, and there's more women this time than ever. There's more contestants. In the beginning episode, they said, I think there's like a full 30, I think. I don't know. I didn't see how many there were. Two people had said during the episode, this is the most we've ever been. There's the most contestants in the room for the first night, I think, ever. So we can double check that, but yeah, I don't know. There's too many. So how are we going to go about this? So this is what I'm thinking. Really, the people who stood out were the majority of the ones that they showed, right? There were a few people who went home at the end of the night where we actually didn't even see their limo entrance. Yeah. I was like, who was that? Oh, bye. Like, no idea. Yeah. So what I think is we can do is kind of jump past most of the entrances, except for the ones that we want to actually talk about, and get into like the meatier conversations. Mm-hmm. And then the entrance could be discussed in that space. So like if he's sitting down and talking to Rachel, that's spelled wrong. You said it. Sure. Then we could also mention something about her entrance, if that is appropriate. Okay. I'll be scrolling back and forth with my notes in that case. Yeah, I have all my descriptions up front. Let's just go through the whole thing as we do our notes like usual and see what happens. Okay, great. Okay, so he looks so nervous and excited, and he has a little tear in his eye at the beginning. And Nicole just helped us out in the chat. Nicole says there were 32 ladies. That's a lot. Okay, I mean, we start off with, we saw a pretty good interaction from Bree. There's Rachel spelled wrong. Sarah, I liked. She's the broadcast journalist from San Diego. Her, opening, little intro thing, she got a good one. They portrayed her very favorably in terms of, emotional connection and ability to communicate. She's the one whose dad has ALS, correct? Yes. And I commented to Rachel, I was like, wow, she nailed, her opening thing. She took the second girl out, and usually everyone's nervous and, flubbers something or says the wrong thing. And she just nails her opening line, makes a great impression, and walks away. And I tell Rachel, and she's like, she's a broadcast journalist. Yes. I'm like, oh. Of course she's going to nail it. Look right into the camera and say the lines. I think first we were Mari. He was stricken by Mari. Yeah, very stricken. Then, we have the woman from Ethiopia who came to the country to become a pharmacist. Who just got her doctorate. We have a lot of people in advertising and marketing. Yeah. Journalists, a couple different journalists. Yeah. Publicist. Kayla, who is a healthcare advocate, decides to bring, she's from North Carolina, as well as Matt James. So she decides to drive in a pickup truck and remind him of home. And that theme actually goes throughout the night. Her one-on-one time involves the pickup truck. Yep. And it was very, very smart. She did a great job of making
Serena C gets the award for fastest recovery of all time.
Yes.
She trips going up the stairs, sort of falls into him, and says immediately, like 5 seconds here, I'm already tripping over you.
It was amazing.
Solid.
No, I'm already tripping off you.
Off you?
Yeah, like a drug.
That. Oh,
like
nice. Even better.
Like I'm already tripping off you.
Triple entendre.
It was so funny.
Serena, the publicist from Toronto, brings a step stool because she's short and he's tall. That was funny.
Then we got the goat hooves girl. We got the pasta kiss gal.
Yeah, then
we have
the underwear, two dresses.
Lingerie, two dress gal.
Honestly, I appreciate, usually in the situations you see the contestants like tear one another down. One of the girls in the house was like, I mean, that's ballsy. Like, she's like, yeah, I mean, if you're good, yeah, go for it. I appreciate that instead of like, I can't believe they did that. Like, often people will get criticized for how they do their entrances, which most of the times they're not the ones picking what to do. Well, in this case, probably, but you know what I mean.
Nicole in our chat here says, I love that this season it felt like the producers selected not only beautiful women, but smart women.
Yes.
Yes, and that's not to imply, I don't want anyone to think that we are implying that past contestants have been not smart. There have been plenty of amazingly wonderful, brilliant human beings. I agree completely on the whole. It just seems like a higher maturity level, both of intelligence, whether that be academic or emotional or otherwise.
Right, life experience wise.
Yeah.
I noticed that as well very quickly. Everyone, I don't know, I caught myself thinking that the ages were older, very similar to Tayshia's season. I was like, I don't see it older. And then I keep seeing like 24, 25, 26. I was like, oh, for some reason, I'm skewing older with the contestants, and that's interesting that happens.
Well, even some of the 24-year-olds are coming off the same so far as like the 30 and 32-year-olds. The first 24-year-old out of the third limo is Abigail. She lives in Portland, Oregon. She was born deaf, and she has an implant in order to hear. And she tells him right away, I'm deaf, I'm going to be reading your lips. It's a good thing they're beautiful lips. And they end up having this incredible connection. Spoiler alert, she gets the first impression rose. It's the first and only real kiss of the episode. And I wrote down, before all of that happened, I felt so moved by her coming on the show. I cannot imagine what it would be like to have an impairment of a sense that is so important and to be in such a vulnerable position. Like, as a contestant on The Bachelor, you have no say in what's going on. And, like, I would be scared of that anyway. And I have all of my senses fully. Like, it just moved me that she is on it.
I always think, I was coming from the perspective of, she's coming on there very vulnerably, very open about having something to do with one of the senses used for communicating on a show about relationships and communication. Like that. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, and she's honest about it, and she's like really upfront about it, and again, and I'm not trying to like shit on the past or say everyone's like using their stories that are hard in life to get like further in the show. It wasn't portrayed like that either.
Right.
It was, hey, this is me, so we can talk though. Like, I need you to know this so we can move forward. Not my life is hard because of this.
Me.
It's not. Yes, Anna, as sweet as she is, defined herself with coffee. Abigail did not define herself by her deafness.
Right, and that, that's a really, really, really good point. It was so beautiful to watch. It was really cool. I really like her, and it was very, very neat. We get a couple like other cool people that come through. Imani.
I liked MJ.
Oh, I'm not there yet.
Oh, good.
I have like 3 people. We have Imani, Lauren, who's an attorney in Florida, Piper, spelled like a pie and then a purr. And her intro was cute. She said that she always wanted to keep her own last name when she gets married, and her last name is James. So
Just saying.
they'd be a great fit. I was like, that's an excellent intro.
It's a solid intro.
And then we get to MJ.
Yeah. I just thought she was funny because, everyone's nervous going to these. If you listen to any interviews of any contestant anywhere from the show, so they're always, the first question is, were you nervous? Oh my God, I was so nervous. I completely fucked up my intro and I was so blah. MJ gets out of the car. And, she's going to do a little pizza stunt. Car door doesn't open. What does she do? She laughs. She goes 1 second, walks around the car, opens the car door, unlocks the car doors, closes it, walks back around the car, gets the pizza out. She was able to laugh at herself and then just carried it forward where she went and talked to him. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. She's like, ha ha.
No, in fact,
things happen and ha ha, I'm going to keep laughing because that's why I'd be upset.
She said, well, that didn't go as planned. One door doesn't open, go to the next one, right?
I appreciate her positive attitude and plucky spirit.
Yeah. Then Katie, the bank manager, who brought the vibrator that we saw at the beginning. We do get to see the full, maybe not the full, I don't know how much they edit these, but we get to see more of her intro where she doesn't actually pass the torch, aka the vibrator, to Matt. She says that because fantasy suites are so far away, she's going to need to keep it until then because of how handsome he is.
I appreciate the sex positivity.
I was so into it.
And here's the thing is that, I'm impressed from the show for showing it because they don't have to.
Yep.
They easily could have erased Katie from the entire show one way or another.
Easily.
And they led with it. And I appreciate the sex positivity because no one's saying the weird girl with the dildo.
Right. Now when she tapped Mari on the shoulder with it, there were some comments, but we can talk about that.
Continue. Katie.
So that was amazing.
And we get Amber, the nursing student from Costa Mesa.
We get Kimberly Elena, who puts her balls in his mouth.
It's a meatball. She's the health food developer.
It was great. Then Kit, who is a 21-year-old fashion entrepreneur, who says the limo was giving her rideshare vibes.
So she called her own car
a Bentley.
So what happened is the production went to her and said, hey, do you know what you're going to do for your intro thing yet? And she's like, oh, I don't know yet. And they're like, hey, do you want to roll up in a fancy car?
That sounds like something that is in alignment with your personality. So then right after her is Victoria.
I love that they brought her out right after Kit because I was like, this is stupid. Look at this stupid car, dumb thing. And then I rolled around the corner, the carrot chair, and I'm like, nope, this is stupid. This is worse. They got worse.
And of course, they're pitted against each other. She says, the queen has arrived, bitches, calls herself Queen Victoria.
Her occupation is also queen, in case no one missed that in the thing.
I'm a little personally annoyed about the fact that she calls herself Queen Victoria because that was what I named my first bong in college. I mean, water pipe. Seriously. Her name was Queen Victoria. You know that.
I do know that. And from this first episode, and from what I know so far about both Queen Victorias, I prefer the latter. Also, she's getting the villain edit. And also, production's telling her to be
Victoria?
Yeah, she's absolutely going to be the villain. It's ridiculous.
I think that her and Kit are specifically cast for drama. They are clearly not good fits with Matt.
No. No, I mean,
and I'm already not looking forward to that. It kind of reminds me of what was that woman's name on Alea?
Yeah, Alea, the Canadian cash, the 22-year-old who actually
that's Michaela. I'm talking about Alea.
Yes.
Who came back?
Alea? Yeah, she came back for 20 minutes and then Peter sent her home again.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so our chat is helping us out. Kit's mom is a famous fashion designer named Cynthia Rowley. I didn't know that.
You're right, though. I think they're cast just as fodder for the show.
100%.
Kit clearly doesn't like anyone, and Victoria has been antagonistic to everyone around her instantaneously. So they found two toxic personalities in casting, and they're like, yeah, these two, psychologically speaking, will be worse for each other. Yeah. Bring them on.
So Nicole in the chat says, do you think Abigail will make it all the way to the end, as traditionally the person who gets the first impression rose is the final pick? So That's only the case in the Bachelorette seasons. The Bachelor does not have a good track record with first impression rose being the final pick. The Bachelorette, however, does. So I don't know. I need to see more.
I did write down, I think she'll go top 3. I made some predictions in my notes here. I think Abigail will go top 3. I think.
I don't.
No?
Mm-mm.
All right. We'll see. Okay, so blah, blah, blah.
So then we go to a commercial.
Yeah, and you get to meet the ladies.
Matt is very nervous. He's walking into the party, and he starts to do a toast and then pauses and asks everybody to bow their heads to say a prayer. And he uses phrases like Father God and like Lord. And it was, I'm not a religious person. I was raised Jewish. I'm not religious. I love the traditions. And I actually really thought that this was a beautiful moment. And like, I'm not religious at all. It was very clear that the way that religion is important to Matt has to do with his own grounding and how he like shows up in relationship with other people and like for himself. And I watched him like essentially do a breathing exercise and like say mantras.
I'm not surprised. I'm glad that you wrote that down because that was also my takeaway.
Not to take away from like the prayer.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. So he obviously was raised religious. That's his thing. His prayers, like I'm not a religious person either. His prayers mean what they mean to him. And what I saw is him ground himself by using something familiar, something that takes time so he can slow himself into. Yes, he did something that is familiar, calming, and puts himself at ease, which is absolutely amazing regardless of the mechanism. Regardless of the stimulus, the mechanism is amazing when you can do that. Like, that's a very healthy exercise regardless of what it is.
Right, 100%.
Yeah, like I'm jealous of that. Like, I wish I could say something for 30 seconds that would like lock me down like that. That'd be amazing. Are you kidding me?
And frankly, to me, that is the most beautiful version of what religion can look like, is he's using it as a positive force to show up as his best self. He's not using it to hate other people. He's not using it as a reason to take rights away from other people. He's just grounding himself. And and as a person, so because I'm not religious, if I were in that room, let's say I had gotten through casting, which they probably wouldn't have cast me, honestly. I mean, well, I would never be on the show. But like...
No redheads.
And, I wear a size 6, Kyle. They don't have that on The Bachelor. I don't know if you know that, but in Bachelorland, they don't have stores for me. I have to shop online.
So you go to Bachelor in Paradise naked. Whatever.
What was I saying?
You were talking about, I got distracted with the clothing thing.
Yeah, totally.
Some of their casting. They're casting somebody. They wouldn't cast someone who looks like you. I said red hair. Oh, religion. Go ahead.
Oh! Wow. Whew. Live streaming people. So if I had gotten cast on the show and prayer was an important part of this person's life, I couldn't date Matt. Right? Like, I couldn't sit down to every meal and have my partner pray. That is not something that in my day-to-day life would mesh with my daily rituals and things that I do. So I want him to be his full self so that I could sit there and say, oh, not for me. Just in the same way that some of the women were moved to tears because of hearing him pray, because that for them was also something that grounds them. So it's such a beautiful thing, in my opinion. Again, like you said, regardless of what it is, it was something that brought everybody together and grounded everyone in a moment. And then after, he goes on to say, he acknowledges that it's all of their first times doing this. He asks them to bear with him, so really asking for some patience and grace. And he pledges to lead the charge of vulnerability. And he says that it's been hard, and then he literally stops talking and just busts out laughing because the vibrator is sitting on the coffee table.
The vibrator, which has now been named MJ, which is short for Matt James, and also there's a contestant named MJ, which, that's just funny.
That's so funny.
So he locks it up.
He totally loses his train of thought.
He finally gets back to it and talks about how he's tried to be perfect and tried to appear perfect in the past, and how that's just not something that he's able to do or wants to do at this point because perfection's subject.
I think he says something like it's... I
didn't write it down, but it was good.
It's like it's unattainable or unrelatable or something. It was good.
It's possible. So cheers to all, and immediately Rachel, with the A first, or the A in there at all, it's weird, Rachel, she's smitten instantaneously. Like, she's crying, she had an emotional response to the prayer, like, she is...
But not, like, over the top, like
no,
a real...
Like she is falling in love in that moment. Like, the door opened immediately in her head for those emotions to flow through. Like, all the things that make you feel connected to somebody else, that turned on right then.
Yeah.
Like, she was maybe interested in it before, watched Instagram stuff, like, whatever she did to, like, am I attracted to this person? But that moment probably did a lot more than anything else that had happened before.
Yeah. And then the first one-on-one time we see is with broadcast journalist Sarah. She asks what he's looking forward to the most out of the experience, and he says unpacking my story and all the other women's stories. It sounds like he started going to therapy. The term unpack is something that is used in a therapeutic space. Like, let's unpack that as in a topic. So it's really interesting to me. He continues to use this word. It's kind of like his catchword. He's like, yeah, I'm going to unpack that. Like, someone's going to therapy. This is very cool.
Oh, yeah. What I do like, well, I mean, first, of course, like Sarah, the broadcast journalist, she's like, perfect leg cross, hand out. So tell me about this. Tell me about your family. Like, full on interviewing him for a second. What I appreciate in his voiceover later on is in the moment he says that notices he's being robotic. Like, when he's talking to Sarah specifically, he's like, I'm having a hard time loosening up. I think I'm coming off strangely. And you can see in the first set of, like, sit-downs that he does with the contestants, they're not touching. There's, like, space between... Like,
they're doing this move. Instead of, like...
Later on, you'll see them holding hands later in the episode.
Yeah.
Right, so he acknowledges that he's struggling to open up. And then he does by the end of it. But I appreciate the authenticity about it.
What I loved is his ITM. He says, I'm hoping I'm everything they think I am. Which made me so sad because I know what that feeling feels like. And it's really scary to feel as though you have to live up to other people's expectations of you. Like, that they have ideas of you that you don't even know.
Yeah.
And, like, you're going to fall off this pedestal really quick. And as he's saying this in his ITM, there's this random voice, I don't know who it was, that just says, I love a guy who can be comfortable being nervous. And I loved it because I was like, oh my gosh, okay, not only are we showing this black man on TV being vulnerable and open, we're showing a female, because the show is incredibly heteronormative, we're hearing a female reinforce the positive aspects of that man being open and vulnerable. So not only are we seeing it, because then our subconscious is like, oh, okay, yeah, that's okay. Then any of the guys at home, and I'm being gendered here because this is a gendered show, not because this is how I think, it shows the guys at home that females on TV are saying, it's so hot when this guy's vulnerable and emotional and nervous. Girls like that. Oh. And frankly, any way we can get that message out, I am for. So if it comes through The Bachelor.
I agree. No, I think it was great. We get to sit down with him and Rachel.
Oh, okay. So this was where I wanted to talk about. Okay. So, Rachel and Matt have a sit down, and Rachel expresses to him that she is so afraid to be vulnerable. Then, she shares that she's scared that she will be judged for being her true self. Now, not only do I relate to this on a personal level, anybody who knows me will know that part of my story involves creating anxiety and depression around not being my full self and being scared of being judged. So I related with that on that level. But he meets her with, yeah, it is hard, and we're going to work on being vulnerable together. And she then shares more about why it's hard to be vulnerable. And then Matt shares more. And Matt ends up then telling her how liberating of a feeling it is to be yourself and let the other person, whoever that may be, love you for who you are. And if they don't, then you can then just move on. And I'm sitting here, like, literally, we're on the couch watching this, and I'm like, is this happening on The Bachelor? Is this actually happening on the first night of The Bachelor? This is episode 1, right? Like, this was the most prime example of what presence, listening, and empathy will do in a conversation.
And vulnerability.
All she said was, I'm scared to do this. And Matt was like, yeah, I get it. It's really scary.
Me too.
And then she's like, let me tell you more. And so in her fear, in her communicating her fear, she was overcoming her fear. And that is often what happens for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And it was so amazing to see that happen live in action. And frankly, his response was so naturally empathetic. And to meet her and to make sure that she knew that she was not alone in that moment, and that being herself, no matter who that was, because he doesn't know who the fuck she is yet, like, no matter who she is, that is the best version of her, to be her, was so beautiful. And I just wanted to, like, jump through the screen and hug both of them. And to answer Bahara's question in the chat, who asks, do you think Rachel with an A is a front runner? I do. I think that Rachel will be top 4.
I wrote top 5, so we'll see.
Ooh, and
we'll see.
I just wanted to say hello to our beautiful girlfriend, Ashley, who just popped into the chat to say hi. Yeah. Hi, babe. All right.
So we get to Mari and Matt James talking. So this conversation is really cool because it's represents everything else that he's done in this night, and I think what we're going to see on the season moving forward. He asks her a little bit about where she's from. She says, I'm from Puerto Rico. And he asks her how her family's doing with all the hurricanes and the earthquakes. And she's clearly surprised by that, and then she's excited to tell him about her family. And he asks another question about her family, and another question, and shows empathy. And it's
interest.
fascinating to see this woman's, like, surprised and then happy she's being, like, listened to and asked questions about her family. Not about, what do you want to do with your life? Blah,
what's your favorite
blah,
sex
blah,
position?
Blah. What'd you go to school for?
Mm-hmm.
He's asking about things that matter today, which is really, really cool. So many times you see in these first couple episodes, all the get to know yous, it's all the what's on your dating profile stuff. It's, I'm from here, I like pizza, I like naps. It's all that stuff, but we're seeing real substance, real questions, and, like, real life brought onto the show. It's nice.
And frankly, a lot more. Like, some of the conversations have gone deeper in night 1 than some have through an entire season.
Oh, we're probably about halfway into the episode at this point, and this first half of the episode is emotionally deeper than all of Peter Weber's season.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
That was a tough season to recap.
Yeah, real hard. So, unfortunately, production showed their hand a little bit. So this, to me, is reminiscent of the champagne thing with Peter's season. As far as we're going on opening nights,
100%, yes.
Let's look exactly how these two nights go.
That wasn't opening. That was later in the season.
The champagne thing?
Gate, yeah.
I thought that was the first night, because I brought it specifically for the one thing.
Nope. It was way later in the season. I made the graphic.
Okay. Either way, you get 2 contestants One is doing something that is emotionally connected. One brought a champagne bottle that mattered to her. One is telling a story about her family and earthquakes and hurricanes living in Puerto Rico. Then someone that we already kind of like, who's a little bit like really bubbly and out there and outgoing, interrupts at a bad time. It was the champagne bottle popping in the distance in the first time, and then this time it's poking the girl telling the sad story about her family in the shoulder with a dildo. Both times, I suspect production was like, hey, it'd be funny, go do this. Go get that time. Just go poke it real quick. Ha ha ha, everyone likes it.
And to be fair, if the timing had not been so bad, it would have still been funny.
Absolutely.
It was a clean silicone sex toy.
Well,
it's funny to use it as a prop throughout the episode, but
and it was.
But fuck you, production, for doing that when someone was talking about their family in Puerto Rico.
Absolutely.
That's the thing, is do it to someone who's talking about how they got, I don't know, just something there are so many non-substantive conversations that could be interrupted with a dildo tap on the shoulder.
Yeah.
That this one didn't feel like the one to do it.
It's like family stuff, and Puerto Rico's already got a pretty rough shot as it go. We don't need to give them any more. Anyway, so here's the best thing about this, though. Then we get the traditional production following Mari around as she's like, I can't believe she touched me with the dildo. I'm so upset, and all these things. And here's what I like. No one's really bothered by it. Katie's like, I'm sorry, that kind of sucks that you're upset, but, and then her at the end, she's like, maybe she needs to use it? I'm not bothered. She's not bothered by this. So it kind of goes to show me, they're trying to inflate something here, and I don't think it's working.
I agree with you. I also think that Katie got a shitty end of the stick. Champagne Gate was episode 2, the chat confirms.
Okay.
I know my
episode
Bachelor.
1 or 2. You
I'm
said
sorry.
way later in the season.
You said that your least favorite episode of every season is 1.
Yeah, I said that. I'm saying that I thought that...
But it didn't happen in that episode.
It happened right after that episode.
Katie, I think, got a shit end of the stick in a way because she was portrayed then as being insensitive to what Mari was talking about. And the fact is that Katie had no idea what Mari was talking about, nor did she probably until last night when this aired on TV. So the way that it was edited and framed almost made it look as though Katie was so insensitive that she just went around poking Mari with this vibrator while she was saying, this hard stuff with her family. And yes, Natalie in the chat says that there's a whole other layer of a white woman interrupting a person of color talking about something deeply personal that a lot of other people can relate to. 100%. And I think that that's why this was a dick move from production. I think that they can meddle and they can do certain things to have drama be created. I think, to me, this crossed a bit of a line for the reason that Natalie stated. Additionally, for the fact that she was talking about family trauma, and it just felt shitty to have someone come in and Katie's being playful and following along with what she thinks is happening.
Right.
And that isn't what is happening.
Yeah.
It was a dick. Yes, it was literally a dick move by production.
Nice.
But I just want to be clear. I don't want to blame Katie.
I don't think it's not Katie like Katie's sitting in the bushes waiting for something emotionally challenging to come up so she can go interrupt it.
Right.
Anyway. Okay, so we see that. Katie's not bothered. Then there's the sweet tea cheers in the pickup truck.
Which was also very cute.
So then...
then this whole Victoria
what
stuff
I
starts.
wrote, so Kit and... I'm bothered by the name Kit because it's the name for a baby goat, and I keep thinking of baby goats every time I say the word Kit.
Adrian's daughter's name's Kit.
Kit? Like K-I-T?
Yeah.
Baby goat. And baby goats are cute. That's something in my head?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Anyway, baby goats notwithstanding. Kit and Matt are talking outside, and very shortly after that, Victoria goes up to interrupt them and get more time with Matt. So, what's amazing here is that we're seeing something happen that I actually am enjoying quite a bit, and usually I don't. Victoria's going around the mansion, resort, what are we going to call it now? I'm so used to saying mansion.
I know. Resort, we know what we're talking about.
She's harassing and criticizing all the women who are concerned about getting time with Matt. And we see, it's a very common thing, right? Oh no, first rose night, who's going to get the first impression rose? Everyone starts to get antsy. Who hasn't had time? Oh no, what's to happen? And she's not even entertaining the conversation around like, oh wow, well, are you nervous to go over there? She's like, go talk to him.
If you're not, I will do it for the second time.
And they're like, oh, I'll do it when I'm ready. She's like, when's ready? Like, she is incredibly rude and abrasive. Don't get me wrong.
Jesus Christ.
She's being incredibly patronizing. She told one of the marketers to market herself to him. Like, okay.
She goes, so what do you do? And she's like, I'm in marketing. And she goes, then you should probably market yourself to Matt. I was like, oh, God.
She's being horrible and antagonistic, and it's like a little bit of a bully thing, too.
Yeah.
And she's right in a lot of ways. There are on principle, she's correct, because there are several contestants who they were complaining about not getting time, and then from what we saw, they didn't do it. And it's a common trope of the show for someone to say, I'm worried about not getting time, and they don't make the move for it, and they don't get it, and they blame someone else. So, in a way, I appreciate Victoria's candor, because the contestants who are going to stay longer, who are feeling nervous about it, they maybe need that shake-up a little bit, like, you're not going to talk? I'm going to go back. Like, I'm being rude, and I'm going to go do it again because I can, and you're not going to get up and do it. So
the problem was not what she did or what she was thinking. It's how she communicated that and how she went about it. Because she could have actually become close with some of the women in the house. She could have helped them and encouraged them.
Absolutely. Supportive. Even.
Like, what's stopping you? You're telling me you want to talk to him and you haven't gone to try to find him. Can I help you? Like,
way better than market yourself.
Anything. Like,
Oh.
You know what it was? It was her shouting advice at people instead of listening to see if that advice is, like, even applicable to them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, she's just going around being like, go talk to him! Go talk to him! And, like...
Not wrong, just really poorly communicated.
As someone who takes, like, a while to context switch and, like, process out of one thing to another, she would, like, my anxiety would be so high around that human being.
So, Kit and Matt, they're talking outside of the steps, and she walks up, and I wrote down, Queen asks Princess for time, and now there's bad blood amongst royalty. I'll take that high five.
That's really funny.
This is now my favorite moment of the entire episode. Victoria and Matt are having a conversation, and they're talking about how there's just so much going on, and Matt goes, it's like trying to drink water from a fire hose, and she goes, what? Why you couldn't drink water from a fire hose?
I can't.
I can't. Here's the best part. I would have exploded on the spot if it happened to me. I'm not as patient, or maybe as tolerant as Matt would be. Maybe on TV I could change, but either way.
Maybe on TV I could change.
He doesn't blink. He doesn't bat an eye. He doesn't take a pause. He doesn't react. He just
explains it.
Begins explaining the metaphor of drinking water from a fire hose, and he does it so calmly. He's like, oh, well, so, when it's a lot of information being taken in at once, because, if you're going to a drinking fountain, you're going to drink water out of it, like, that's easy, but a fire hose is a lot of water, and it comes out really fast, and so you can't really drink out of a fire hose, because it's so much water.
He was explaining it to one of the kids he works with. Like, so one of the kids looked up at him and was like, what does that expression mean?
And I'm not trying to, it's not like a patronizing thing. I'm not saying he's talking to her like a child.
No, he did it great.
But that, truth be told, explaining something like you're talking to a child is way more effective for adults than children, because children will listen and sponge up whatever they can at the time. Adults sometimes really need that extra level of, like, first it's this, then it's this. And so I appreciated his demeanor throughout all of it, and I was laughing like a fucking hyena the entire time.
So this is my question. Does anybody watching or listening to this Is there something that if someone didn't know, like an expression, that it would be such a turnoff that you would not want to go on date to? Like, if you were let's say you went on a first date with this person in real life, right? And you said, yeah, the past week has felt like drinking water out of a fire hose. And that person on the date responded in the same way. Would that be a deal breaker?
Do
you have things like that?
Well, so I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm going to say that I might, because the way my brain works, I really, really use analogy and metaphor to help myself understand. Like I like reading information from a book and like bringing it in is difficult for me, so I'll often like repeat things in analogy and metaphors. My brain learns better that way. So if there's things like mountains out of molehills or grass always greener that they don't understand, I don't think I have the capability to explain a lifetime of English terminology and slang. I just don't think I could do it. I think I just figured that out. I don't think I can do it.
Kyle just figured it out.
But I don't know what would be the thing. All I know is that like drinking water from a fire hose is pretty common. All I'm saying.
Yeah, and Morgan, thank you. Morgan just said this in the chat.
Oh.
Her response to me would have been the deal breaker.
Yep,
was she looks at him and she goes, "Drinking water out of a fire hose, is that Southern?" I was like, what's going on?
I couldn't do it.
Terrence in our chat says, Kit versus Victoria. Spoiled heiress versus arrogant bitchy alpha girl. Not a surprising clash. They're definitely both cast as archetypes of a certain type of person who comes on The Bachelor.
And young and entitled.
The producers are doing their job in upping.
Oh, I mean, even the sound bites we got from one of the first things we heard from Kit is, I like being the center of attention.
Yeah.
That was in her intro packet. Like, come on.
So then we pivot from this, like, very, like, royal drama fire hose conversation into a really, really two beautiful conversations, one of which we've kind of already talked about. Mm-hmm. So the first one is with Bree. Bree is the first gal who exited the limo. She's in that beautiful green dress. And we learned that her mom is Persian, white passing Persian. And when somebody says white passing, what that means, if you don't know, is that if you were walking down the street, if you saw that person from far away, you would think, oh, that person's white. And
it's not like you putting it together. It's your brain categorizes it that way based off of your upbringing, but based off society. It's crazy. It's
a subconscious filing. And it's a very unfortunate reality for anyone who is not white, that people are treated differently because of skin color. And so if you are a Persian woman and look more traditionally Persian, that is a different experience in America, unfortunately, than a Persian woman who looks white passing.
Which is Bree's own term she's using.
That is what she used. But I wanted to clarify what that meant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that term I haven't heard on the show. So she explains that her mom is Persian and her dad was black, but they separated before she was born. Very, very similar to Matt's experience. Yeah, so we have like this white mom, although her mom is Persian, but white passing. Both dads were black. Both dads were not in the picture for different reasons from a young age. Mm-hmm. And it was very clear that Bree and Matt bonded over this and that they just have a human connection.
Yeah, they just have a very clear natural connection. I wrote down top 5.
Yeah, it's like
I think so. I think
Bree,
top 5.
Rachel, like right away, those stood out to me.
Okay, so then we get to Abigail.
Which we talked.
But it's another version of the same thing that I talked about when it came to Mari.
Yeah.
He goes up to her and he asks her something about what she said earlier, which is her sister. Yeah. He says, you mentioned that your sister is all... Do you have the same thing? What?
Can I just tell you that I think my vagina turns on when I hear the words you mentioned?
Yeah. Or unpack or reflect?
No.
No, just you mentioned?
Like, you mentioned, because all of a sudden it's like, What did I say earlier?
You've
You're
been
remembering
listening.
right now. What
Tell me
magic
what
just
you
happened.
remember about me.
Yeah.
Not in the most
Sorry,
vain way, but
continue.
also, not in the most vain. Something. Anyway,
So he says.
right, so he says, you mentioned your sister earlier, and it sounds like you two are really close, and so he leaves space for her to talk about things that he's interested in that she said earlier. And she goes on to explain this amazing connection she has with the sister, who's a little older and also deaf, and so she followed in her footsteps and learned from her.
Went through the whole procedure that she went through, and
absolutely,
she was talking about how she laid the groundwork for her. It was really beautiful,
right? And he reflects that so they have a very clear and natural connection right away. That I'm curious if you sensed the same thing. As it continued, I got the impression that Abigail didn't quite believe it was happening.
Yes. That is how I experienced it as well.
And it made the moment sweeter and also more emotionally connected.
Yes. I almost felt myself choke up.
Well, they also I criticize production a lot for the way they put things together, especially in the editing. In this case, I will commend them because what they did is they focus on the two of them, and then they make out a little bit. And you're like, yay, oh my god, that's so good. He hasn't kissed anyone else. And so then we get back to the mansion, or whatever. I'm just going to call it the mansion. I don't fucking care. It's a giant mansion that usually other people stay at, but right now it's just them, and there's people who work there, whatever. We cut around. Everyone's getting nervous at first rose. What's this? What's that? And then you see, Matt, after talking to Abigail, he's walking by himself, comes in, gets the rose. And then the women are separated into 3 rooms. So he walks into a room. They're like, oh, are you gonna? And he walks out. And they're like, oh, not us. And he goes to the next one. And he's like, oh, it's gonna be us. No, not us. And then very unexpectedly, you see him walk directly back to Abigail on the couch. So the way they cut it, it made it seem like 10, 15 minutes later, Matt's on the next thing. But in reality, that all took place within the same 35 seconds, 45 seconds. Because I didn't think that was going to happen, and neither did Abigail because she burst into tears.
Yeah, it was a really special moment.
A lot of intention for Matt too.
So
very
intentional
to start the
So intentional.
I'm very curious about that because the first kiss like that and first impression rose. I don't know. It's very interesting.
I saw more bonds made in this first episode than I typically see in the first episode. Most of the time after the first one, I leave with this feeling of a general sense about how the season may be, or what the group of people is like, or maybe how the dynamic with the lead will be in narrating, or who the villain might be, or that type of stuff. But there are specific people that had very notable connection points with Matt over things that are not oh my god, your favorite color is blue, my favorite color is blue. Actual substantive life stuff. And I'm really happy. I was excited when it ended.
Yes, there's more substance to this than before. And actually, here's a great comparison. I'm going to keep dogging on Pilot Pete because that season is fucking
Pete.
Train wreck.
And producers.
So, I'm not sorry to the production. You guys did that to himself. You guys did that to him and then yourselves. So, be sorry to yourselves. Anyway, think about how the first, the limo walks went. How many pilot jokes were there?
Or condom.
Yes. Windmill, sex, pilot jokes. That's all Peter season started with. Has there been... There's one that I can think of, a representation of something that is part of Matt's past that was played into the opening limo thing. There's only one that I can think of. Pickup truck, because she's from North Carolina too, and that's part of the thing, and that's part of the truck.
And that's even a stretch,
right?
In terms
of
I
mean, sure, real estate investor. I don't know what they do, houses,
because people don't know him. That's amazing.
It's so refreshing to not have all of the intro things. They have to present themselves. Hi, I'm so-and-so. Yes. I'm whatever. They do their thing instead of saying, hi, this is what I know about you. It's different, and it's so refreshing.
I
I'm afraid
agree.
we'll never see it again.
I agree with that.
Already.
And that's so well said.
Oops. When I listen to this back, I'll actually know what I said for the first time.
So we immediately then shift. After the first impression rose is given out, it is very clear, based on the editing of the music,
it's time.
It's time for the rose ceremony. And then very quickly, like, you start to see the classic, like, scarcity, I've been defeated, there's not enough time, everybody's prettier than me, like, breakdown of insecurity start to happen, where, like,
so fun.
And everyone's so tired, and, like, the makeup's running, and, like, oh, God, that first night just sounds like absolute hell.
Right.
I cannot imagine living through it.
So Chris does his little thing. Matt goes out there. He mentions he's nervous, in case that's not a surprise for anybody at this point.
So, literally, I looked at Kyle like 4 times while we were watching, and I was like, hey, is Matt nervous?
I typed, he's nervous. Has he mentioned that?
Okay, so Matt thanks all of them for an amazing first night. He acknowledges their sacrifices that they made to be there, which happens a lot. A lot of people say that. It felt more sincere coming from him. I don't know why. And for his vulnerability, he says that he is shaking because he knows that tough decisions He says that he's shaking because he knows tough decisions are part of what happens when trying to find love. He promised himself he'd follow his heart, and he's excited to see where the journey goes.
We had to get some normal Bachelor bullshit in there.
Yeah.
So
Abigail has the first impression rose, and then the women who get the roses are Bree, Rachel, Chelsea, Sarah, MJ, Sierra P, Kayla, Kristen, Kit, Maggie, Piper, Mari, Ileana, Yesenia, Kaylee, Marilyn, Serena C, Lauren, Sydney, Elena, Katie, and Victoria.
I wrote, thanks for that production, and then put the facepalm emoji.
Yeah.
So there's that. I wrote, as we see some of the goodbyes, and we see some of the contestants leave, I always forget that it's daylight the next day, and I only think of how everyone still looks so good on camera, because, like, I'm 33, I've been the age of some of the people on there, and, like, I don't think I look that good. I'm sure there's tons of makeup and all that, but fuck, they've got to be so goddamn tired by the end of this.
I know.
How does the suit stay so pressed the entire time?
That's true.
How does that happen?
I agree with Terrence in our chat that ballerina Alicia went home. I was upset about that too. It bums me out.
They always do one though. There was always one of the intro
that you get attached
to. That one's really cool because it's super obvious. And then she was featured more than most too. So yeah, they want you to be a little let down.
And Terrence also made a really good point in our chat. He says, while him being black was a theme, we were talking about Pilot Pete having a theme of, but it wasn't played like a joke. And frankly, thank goodness.
Yeah.
If it had, I no.
I think ABC read the room well enough for that.
Frankly, I think that it was a decently well-balanced episode in terms of acknowledging that he is the first Black Bachelor, but not also sitting there and making it about him being the first Black Bachelor.
Or like, Chris telling him why that's important.
Right. Like a white man telling Matt
wow, isn't
why.
it so interesting that you're he's...
Like, Matt was the one that said it.
I'm very appreciative that Chris isn't saying it.
Yeah. So I think that overall it was a really well done first episode. I usually don't like the first episode of the season. It's typically my least favorite.
I usually heavy sigh after the first one. I look at Rachel, I'm like, we're really going to keep doing this?
Yeah. It's true.
Shit, really? Fuck, all right.
And then you love it.
Yeah, I love it. Fine.
But we both didn't feel that way after this one.
No, I'm pretty stoked. Especially because the exit thing, that was unfair.
What?
Coming up, you'll see in this season.
Oh, okay.
It's not,
wait. Hold on, we have to do... So...
It's a little unfair.
Okay.
I feel particularly specifically targeted.
So Kyle and I both, we watched the, promo reel, coming up on this season. And we each took down notes like this of what is coming. So what we want to do is read to you what we took away as what's coming up this season on The Bachelor.
You want to go first? Want to go second?
I'll go second.
All right. So this is my...
Wait, yours is so much better. I'll go first. We'll end with yours. It's so good.
All right.
Okay. Ready. Cheers! Matt's in the shower. Group bride date. Horses. Hot tubs. More hot tubs. Making out. Lots of instant chemistry. Skydiving. Discussions on color. Race. Hot air balloon rides. Falling in love. New people coming in. Heather's there? What the fuck, Heather? We love you, Heather. An ambulance. So many tears.
Nice. All right.
Also, P.S. Heather Martin, we know why you couldn't tell us, because you signed a contract probably. But oh my God, I can't wait to hear everything. We had Heather on the podcast. For those of you who don't know, she is a wonderful human being, and I am going to text her after this. I'm so excited.
Yeah, like I know you couldn't.
Like we know you can't tell us anything, but also...
I shouted at the TV. Anyway, so here's my summary.
Yes, so good.
Matt showers, horses, making out, milk bath, Sarah goes far, adventure, cars, race conversations, making out, everything is about to change. Women come in halfway through, sex worker shaming. Heather, why is Heather there? What the hell, Heather? Boxing, yelling, crying, more crying, now Matt's crying, now Chris is wearing a sweater over a button down, Matt cries and needs time. He's afraid to go deep, and he's afraid of putting someone else through what he's been through. Shit's crazy, into this a lot more than I thought. Matt James season.
That is the summary on what's coming up this season on The Bachelor.
And the right reasons.
We are so excited to be back here with you. Be sure that you thumbs up this video, that you are subscribed to this channel. And if you're listening to it on a podcast platform, make sure that you're subscribed on the podcast platform and that you like, rate, and review the pod.
Additionally, so I see people in the comments asking what we thought about Tayshia's season and men from there. We'll do a one-off recap just for fun later at some point. And one more thing you may notice, I've noticed that we look a little bit better on camera because we have a bunch of new bells and whistles and fancy stuff. And what you're going to see in and around the little studio here is going to get better and better. So if you have any thoughts or cool requests, let us know.
Yeah. Who are our top 5? I need to see the list of all of the.
I can do it right now. I can do it.
Okay, we'll do it. No, I'll do it. We'll do it. We'll do it live.
Okay.
Bachelor, Matt James cast. Oh, and for those of you who are new to our show, please, we do not look at spoilers.
Mm-mm.
We go out of our way to avoid spoilers.
Yep.
Please don't send us spoilers. It really changes the way that we can look at the show and like actually comment on it when you know how it ends. It changes it. And so we try really hard not to see anything. So please don't send us any spoilers. Thank you. Nicole says, love that you're back. Another series I can look forward to. Natalie says, so glad you guys are back. I love all your input and perspectives. Thank you, Natalie. Amanda says, great breakdown. Thank you, Amanda.
Yay.
Okay. I am looking at the cast now.
Okay. Hold on. I'm getting close. I'm almost finished here with my top 5. 1 second. Okay. I feel pretty confident about 4 of these, and the 5th is,
So I like true transparency. I like doing this exercise after the first real episode where we've seen them in like normal clothes fair. But I will do it now too. I'm just saying I think I may have a different top 5 considering some of these people I did not hear talk.
That's entirely fair, and I want to see if I can actually do it.
Yeah. It'll be fun to look back on. Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah. Actually, I feel pretty confident on all of it. I feel pretty confident in my top 5.
Okay, go ahead.
Bree, Abigail, Sarah, Mari, Katie.
Ooh. Okay. Mine's Sarah, Rachel.
Yeah, maybe. That's a good one. Sarah? What? Rachel more than Sarah?
Sarah, Rachel, Kayla. Chelsea, Bree, Abigail. Is that 6?
Yeah, I think it's 6. Whatever. We'll see. I wrote down my 5.
Okay.
I'll check the notes in the end.
Whew! I reserve my right to change with new information.
right? It's almost like we're human. Anyway, well, this has been episode 1 of 2021 Right Reasons. Yay.
We miss you so much. Please be sure to keep in touch with us on Instagram or at The Right Reasons and at The Right_Rachel, at The Right_Kyle. We will see you here next week. Bye.
Bye.